it was actually very easy for me to be compelled by this because I mean I like for instance, let's take the nocturnes, the Chopin nocturnes, and
Yeah,
I never thought too deeply until it hit me. I just realized, like, wait a second, nobody plays it at the metronome mark there. Just nobody does. It's just they
yeah,
don't do it. And it's the same with the Chopin Etude number 3. Where is it? I think it's
yeah,
number 3. The number 3, Opus 10.
yeah.
Everyone plays it naturally in whole beat. Naturally, no one's telling them to. In fact, no one even bothers with this. They just totally ignore it. They just totally ignore it. It's like it's not. Yeah.
Or if they do not ignore it, they use it and say, yeah, like you see, people are just playing like so slow. It's not clearly not what Chopin meant. His tempo is 100, and then they play at 8 not 80.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there are some videos on YouTube of people who say, yeah, I mean, we are not like the others. We are going to take seriously Chopin's metronome number, which is 100. People play 50. It's way too slow. And then my tempo is 80. I mean, this doesn't make much sense, I would say.
Right. You
Whether
mentioned
you
number
follow
6.
his tempo or
Yeah.
not. Imagine like you have Chopin next to you. Hey, great, I have your metronome number. I'm going to follow it, but for the sake of it, I'm just going to take 80 because I think it's better.
Right. You also mentioned
mean,
number 6, right, as an example of everyone.
Number 6, it's played much slower than that metronome number.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is that people say, yeah, but like if you apply the whole beat theory, slow movements become unbearably slow when they do not realize that it are the slow movements that most of times performance, when they just like let their instinct go and just follow the music, it's when they get the closest to whole beat in the slow movements.
Right.
And so that's something very, very special. I will say also check Brahms' second piano concerto, third movement, the slow movement. Everyone plays 30% between 25 and 30% slower. So the real thing are the slow movements, and it doesn't surprise me that you bring up on the table the nocturnes, because those are pieces where you are not expected to show off any sort of technique. Those are not etudes, and so people just think from a perspective of making the music. And when you just take that path, you can just get close to whole beat rather than with your rationality,
Right. I personally think, I mean, objectively speaking, to play slow is extremely hard. I think it's very hard. I mean, from a musical standpoint, because you can kind of get away with speed. Speed can kind of cover up things. But when you're slow, you're so exposed. Can you talk about pedaling? Because I think pedaling is totally ignored, especially in the manuscripts. Pedaling, especially with the Beethoven. Talk about what is ignored typically in modern performance, so people can understand what's happening in the modern performance.
So let's say besides the metronome numbers that are largely ignored, I will say the pedalings and the fingerings, and also the system of accentuation. It's also very, very important, and it's the key to play in a whole beat, the accentuation. But talking about pedalings, people ignore them, not because they do not want it. So let's put these premises apart. And not all composers indicate consistently the pedalings in their scores, not always. So you start seeing that from with Beethoven from his Opus 26, his sonata in A flat major. Chopin's, we can say that safely, that he's really, really, really precise of what he wants with the pedalings.
Chopin is precise.
He's really precise.
Okay.
I can tell you, like, if you go to Schumann's or Brahms or Liszt, it's not always the case. But with Chopin, Czerny, Moschles, Bülow in his editions of Beethoven sonatas, you can tell that they are really precise. You just see a pattern. But coming back to why people do not follow in case of the etudes, it's just because if tempo changes everything, I said before. So if you're interpretation is based on our standard tempi of today. I'm sorry, but the only way to play in at those tempi is that to have the pedal helping you, because what does the pedal do? It allows you to leave the key before without worrying about the accuracy of your release. And so you can just run to the next key and just play faster. That's what a pedal does. And so if these tempi are your point of departure, you cannot play the revolutionary etude the way it's written, so without pedal completely.
Right.
So that's something.
Back to the etudes, and I'll never forget this. I remember I was watching a masterclass on the opus, number 10, the etude number 10 in F major. And I remember at the end of it, and this is a great pianist talking about it, but I remember there's this section at the end with all these accents. And the person giving the lecture said, I really don't know why these accents are here. And
I will say, should we say, ask that to Chopin? Why?
And
did you
they said
try
literally
that?
in the masterclass, he said, it's actually better if you don't play the accents, and it sounds like
thanks, Frederick. Thank you for the accent, but we don't really need those. Thank you.
Yeah, because if people are going to criticize you, say the metronome number is nothing. It's not that important. It's not everything. Okay, but now you're taking apart the accents and the score. You're basically taking away the intentions. You're taking what's next. You don't want to take away the cadences. There's a lot of things so I think that there is some problem here that the accents and other aspects of that were very meticulously written in the score. And you said, right, that, and I think this is backed up, that Chopin would agonize over his compositions, like one note or something. There's an anecdote where he just agonized and then he would change it, and then he would change it back. So he's that sort of composer. So when we have that in mind, now, of course, all of this is speculation, and I don't want people to think that this is the final thing, but I think it's quite compelling to say that if you dismiss certain things, it's less compelling that you're actually trying to recreate as it was intended. Oh, yeah, actually.
Actually, the fact that he agonized and worked a lot because he was obsessed with writing down what he wanted should be a plus for us to take what he says seriously, and not to say the opposite. He agonized, he doubted all the time, so maybe that, he would have changed the mind. No, it's actually the opposite. He worked a lot because he knew once he had the publication that was out in the world, and that he wanted to be sure that was what he wanted people to do for his music. So we better take that seriously. And the point is,
all the accents, even in the number one. The number one has the accents. You never hear them.
The point is, everything is possible. He didn't write impossible things. Otherwise, we would have to assume that the guy was just out of his mind and he didn't know